All right, Travis Wayne Goodsill. Last night I threw you out a teaser that yet another scandal has hit the church. First, let's go over the previous scandals, and then we'll go over the one from last night that I covered. The first one, which I found out later, people had been talking about it, wondering what happened to the case, and so when I finally got around to investigating, sure enough, it's connected to the church and even connected to my case that I filed, which is part of the scandals. The first one was a satanic pedophilia ring by Nelson's children back in the 80s. That case is now currently stalled in the Utah Supreme Court. Then you had the very Monday after, you had Gaddy versus COP. And this is the one that Judge First was terminated for because she allowed it to proceed rather than having it dismissed. And then I come into the picture and I get assigned Judge First, who's been fired. And so she is unwilling and uncooperative in my case, even though the church is committing all these different crimes. Then the $100 billion in tithing scandal through Ensign Peak Associates comes out, and this is where it's not so much that they're taking from tithing to invest, because tithing doesn't go for charity as it's supposed to according to the Bible. Instead, what the real crime is that the Ensign Peak Associates are not just supposed to be for investing, they're actually an article of incorporated such that they're supposed to give charity from this corporation. And that's the scandal, is that they're involved in tax fraud, investment fraud, and corporate fraud. Then you have the reporting that comes out that the number of Mormons for the previous year are the lowest that they've ever been since the 1940s, I think I heard. So the Mormons are not getting recruits. The pyramid scheme has run its course, because that's what happens with the pyramid scheme. It can't go forever. It can only go as far as people want to buy into the company. And so new recruits are at an all-time low. Number of converted children baptisms at an all-time low. And this is because of the gospel topic essays that they confessed to lying and deceiving to members. And so 11 million at that time just stopped attending church. And because they weren't attending, they're not getting their children baptized, and they're not paying into tithing. And now we're starting to see the physical reality of that exodus back in 2011, 2012. Then we had the Boy Scouts bye-bye Boy Scouts. We knew about this from way back when the church said, we're quitting the Boy Scouts. We're quitting you because of their anti-gay, and then the whole Boy Scouts, when the Boy Scouts said, we're going to allow women, girls, into the Boy Scouts. And so that's when the church had enough. It's bad enough to allow gays, but to allow girls? Hell no, we're out completely. And they made arrangements with the Boy Scouts, and they're gone. And the church has now got a new young youth program, a new Hitler Youth. But the Boy Scouts went and declared bankruptcy because they're not getting the church's money anymore. They don't have the support and funding and the boys from Mormons. And so, instant collapse. And that left 8,000 boys without compensation for damages caused by the church through Boy Scouts. And then the very next day, yesterday, the Church Handbook of Instructions Volume 1 gets combined with Volume 2 and is released to the public. And oh my God, I had seen the previous leaked handbook, and I've got that still, but they made some modifications in this one with and so I've got a supply of videos for you guys for the rest of eternity with the handbook. But the handbook 1 is the holy grail of Mormonism. It's been kept secret from Mormons. It's only for leaders. And the church higher leadership, the prophets, had long ago decided we're not going to receive any Mormon letters anymore, because this is getting out of hand. People are asking us tough questions, and we don't know doctrine, we just run a company. So, they start announcing in conference that, we don't know the doctrine, we're not very smart, we go to BYU scholars to tell us what to believe. and then they are saying that all questions are to be diverted to the stake president for disciplinary action in many cases. Because if you're asking questions, that means your faith is weak, and you need to be set back on course. And so the church, Mormons, are being squashed as to getting answers of doctrinal and historical and other questions that are essential for an organization or a religion to be able to answer. You want to know. We're all sheep, cattle, as we are paying our consumer members rather than board members in the church. And as a result, we're working, or we're shopping at a religion that is withholding consumer information from us. That's the best analogy I can give for you. And so that scandal broke yesterday, and then I found out 9 hours after it broke that Business Insider had exposed the site that listed the Ensign Peak Associates' other investments from the $100 billion, because Ensign Peaks got exposed. Ensign Peaks had to disclose other financial information, and there's another $40 billion that were found with Ensign Peak Associates. And in that investment portfolio, the church is involved directly with criminal organizations, Deutsche Bank being the biggest of scandals in there. But they're also investing in all of the internet communications and social media communications. So they have stock in Microsoft and Google, as well as Facebook, and with Google comes YouTube and Twitter, and so even Square, which is the company that took over my website, and that explains why I'm getting shut down on the internet, why people are not getting access to me and my information. And so the church is directly involved and implicated in these criminal activities and targeting me specifically to shut me down, to silence me. If people understood this information that I'm giving to you guys, you wouldn't be going to these other popular LDS critics, because these other LDS critics only know based upon the level of knowledge that they got from Mormonism, which was law, lies, and deception. I, however, was faithful as a Mormon boy and actually studied the scriptures, deeply studied. I didn't just read, I studied. How did I study? I went and studied biblical Hebrew, Greek, Egyptian. That's how deep I went. And that's what the church has always been telling us. Don't get into deep doctrine, but study your scriptures. We demand it. And so, I knew Joseph Smith needed to be confirmed. They're saying it's the true Church of God, and Joseph Smith is called of God, and so I assumed they were telling the truth. And yes, I did find out Joseph is correct. But it wasn't until I studied church history, and we can include the Saints book in this scandal. They're still lying about church history with these new Saints books. They came out with volume 2 recently, last week I think. Well, it's Thursday, last week I guess. But the church just continually lies. They're habitual liars. They can't stop lying. And so that's a problem. Some other scandals that the church is involved with, as the video is loaded to the movie maker, so I can now test it and make sure it is a good volume quality. But some other scandals. Mormons don't understand Operation Rio Grande is about Mormons, the church. The church at Temple Square was getting bombarded with panhandlers. The number of homeless people at the downtown shelter surpassed the number of beds by hundreds, as people were just lined up in the streets all night long. And to solve the problem, and it's not solving it at all, they just created a worse problem. They decided that Salt Lake City would have a urban redevelopment program where they put in the Gateway Mall right across the street from it. They knew that this would prevent people from coming to the mall, was because of the panhandlers that would be diverted from Temple Square to the Gateway. Sure enough, that's what happened. And sure enough, the store owners complained. And sure enough, the government stepped in and said, "Oh, we'll fix this for you." And Operation Rio Grande, where their intention was to just arrest them, throw them in prison, in jail, Salt Lake County Jail specifically. They cleaned out a whole bunch of beds as they moved previous jail people to the other jails, and then proceeded, and it resulted in more police needing to be brought in, overtime hours for those police officers, and the homeless just scattered throughout all Utah, and caused a real problem. And so then, to solve the problem that they created again, they then created 3 homeless shelters and placed them further away from Temple Square. And that produced only 700 beds of the 1,100 plus that were needed. So at least 400 beds shorter, and then the homeless started getting run over by cars at the one location. It's sad, but that involves the church, guys. Another one was the midterm election, the medical marijuana bill. The church said, "Mormons, don't vote for it. We do not allow marijuana to be used by Mormons, even though it's for medical purposes. Nope, it's a sin, it's evil, don't vote for it." And because most Mormons know of someone in need of medical marijuana, people who have seizures, for example, need the medical marijuana to slow down the brain functioning so that they don't have seizures. They gave the church the middle finger, and we voted for medical marijuana. And then the church said, "Legislature, let's adjust the law. Now that it's been passed, let's make some changes." And so it was delayed purposely by the church, as the legislature interfered with the will of the people to make alterations to the law that was put on the referendum. Then you have, previous to this even, the Deseret News, the newspaper owned and operated by the church, the church TV, the church news, the state church, came out with a new privacy policy where they were now going to use cookies to spy on your computer hard drive, not just your Google search, but your hard drive as well, and be able to spy on you. And they are now selling your data, because I gave up on Deseret News after that. They now sell your data to third parties. Sound familiar? Yeah, like Russia. And they're not disclosing who these third parties are. You just have to trust them that they're the news of God. And so your data is being stolen and sold to Russia, as they're going to use that information against you. Then you have conversion therapy. Remember that? The state of Utah eventually banned it, but the church stepped in and says, "We want it continued." And then the people rose up and said, "Hell no. That's torture. That's inhumane." And then the church backslided and said, "Okay, well, let's adjust it." Notice how the church does that? Let's adjust it then. Let's keep it going, but we'll just adjust it. And so all these scandals are just hitting the fan for the church. And so then we get to the investment one, $40 billion in investments. The Huntsman Corp is involved in it, which means that John Huntsman, running for governor, has a conflict of interest with the church, because Mormons pay the church, and the church is investing in Huntsman Corp. Thus, the governor or the governor candidate. And so that's not good, guys. John Huntsman needs to withdraw now. He cannot run for governor because of this connection to the church. And then, like I said, the Deutsche Bank, the international hub for criminal money laundering. Money laundering, guys. The church is now connected to an organization that is known throughout the world for being the place to launder money. And when did the church launder money? Yeah, January 2018, as reported by Fox 13 News Utah, as the church all of a sudden creates these LLC corporations. $32 billion got funneled through those investments, and then they again funneled them through the stock market. All money laundering, guys, because what's the source of that information? What's the source of that money? I wonder, because the new Trump tax bill that was pushed through by Senator from Utah, Mormon, Orrin Hatch, who gave the big crying game scandal with Senator Brown, saying this is for the poor. No, Hatch, you made it for the church. And because the church is filthy rich, you made it for Trump and his corporations and his buddies as well. And so the church benefited that way as well. And they were able to launder money. Now, how do I know it's money laundering? Because what was announced in that first conference with Nelson? Yeah, Russia, if you're listening, we want a temple in Russia. Can you please build us a temple? They're working with the Russians, which means they're laundering money for the Russians. That's what Russia does. Everybody knows about it. There's documentaries galore about it. That's Putin's economic system. And so, yeah, the church is a criminal organization, and thus my lawsuit exposing them as a criminal organization. RICO is how it's done. And so if you don't understand, when you invest in a company, you're not us little folk. If I were to put in $10, maybe if I saved over time, I'd put in maybe 1,000, into a company. They don't care about me and my little puny amount. When you're talking big corporations like the church, the companies listen to you because you're paying to play. And so the list of investments that I show you in this video that will be uploaded after I go for my run, because this video took longer than I hoped. They are money that they're either helping because they know people here in Utah, because there's a number of Utah businesses, but they're also big major corporations. Like I said, the internet. And so the church is highly invested in controlling information on the internet. So Wikipedia, remember when I told you that doing research on the church is the one field on Wikipedia you cannot trust. You can trust most of the other information on Wikipedia because of their high standards for how things get submitted and their review process. But the church, as I have gone over with you guys over and over, the church controls Wikipedia's information about them. And they've messed it all up, violating Wikipedia's own standards for creating articles. And so these kinds of investments are bribes to these companies, saying, hey, we're investing in you guys, you need to help us out here with whatever company, depends on how the church wants the help. For Deutsche Bank, it's a quid pro quo. You allow money to be laundered, and we'll continue to provide you with investment money. Google, there's this Travis Wayne Goodsell on YouTube. I want you to throttle his appearance to other people's recommended videos. And my website, Weebly, which is owned by Square now, change your analytical program to Google's program, which we also control in the search history. So this is how they do things. It's done in politics as well. Big corporations bribe government officials so that when they want to pass a bill, the company says, hey, we want you to not pass this bill. We want you to pass this other bill that will benefit us. And thus our government is run according to the will of big business, not the people, as it was supposed to be. And so the church's investments are crucial to understand as to who they are controlling. That's what you need to understand. And so who the church is bribing. It's not just a little gambling game for the rich, which it is. The church is involved in gambling, but it's a place where they can control other corporations. It's for the super elite corporations to control other corporations. And they're in gas and oil, and healthcare, and all sorts of banking corporations. Deutsche Bank included. So, and social media. So Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, websites, Wix, as I pointed out, and Weebly. All right. And they even control PayPal. PayPal and Square, two online money services. Man. So, all right. And the Business Insider doesn't catch on. They think, oh, well, the church is a church, and so therefore they are not investing in tobacco companies or in or in caffeine. Even though the church came out with a statement a decade ago saying caffeine's not in the word of wisdom, we don't care. But BYU continues to ban a Mountain Dew. And so I've got to go for my run now. I'm at 30 minutes. But you guys need to understand how serious this is. The church is a criminal organization committing crimes. These are the evidences. I mean, we have the $2 billion that the church is doing for their LDS charity, the $40 billion for Ensign investments, $100 billion in tithing investments through the Ensign Peak Associates, $32 billion through LLCs. These are the only ones we know about so far. There's more, because they have a whole lot more businesses that they're involved in. So, my hell, fare thee well.